Senator Ted Cruz.
Economic growth is foundational to every other challenge we've got, whether it's unemployment, whether it's the national debt, whether it's maintaining our military strength. With growth, we do all of that. Without it, we can't do any of that. And I'll tell you the two most effective levers the federal government has to restore economic growth are fundamental tax reform and regulatory reform. We should abolish the IRS. And the single most important regulatory reform we could do is we need to repeal every single word of Obamacare. And let me tell you, right now, we have a moment in time. In the next 30 days, we have our single best opportunity we have ever had to stand up and defund Obamacare. Now, I want to spend a few minutes talking about the battle to defund Obamacare, because I think it is the most important fight facing our country right now. Listen, Obamacare is the #1 job killer in the United States of America. If you want economic growth back, nothing is holding it back more than Obamacare. How about Max Baucus, the Democrat who wrote Obamacare? He describes it as a major train wreck. That's the guy who wrote it. Now, maybe he didn't read it. James Hoffa, the president of the Teamsters, has said Obamacare is destroying the 40-hour work week. That is the backbone of the American middle class. Now, that's not me saying that. That's the Teamsters. The IRS Employees Union has publicly asked to be exempted from Obamacare. These are the guys in charge of enforcing it on the rest of us. And, of course, President Obama most shamefully has lawlessly exempted members of Congress from Obamacare. And that was at the behest of Harry Reid and the Senate Democrats who passed it. And you want to see the difference, that disconnect between career politicians and the American people, you don't have to look any further than right there. So what do? But let me focus on one direct fight. On September 30th, the continuing resolution that funds the federal government expires. I, along with a number of other senators, have publicly pledged under no circumstance will we vote for any continuing resolution that funds even 1 penny of Obamacare. If the ordinary rules of Washington apply, no elected politician in Washington can win this fight. The only people who can win this fight are you. We are trying to fundamentally change the rules of Washington. We are trying to fundamentally remind people that under our Constitution, sovereignty doesn't reside in Washington, D.C. It resides with we the people. The path to winning this fight is simple. The House of Representatives, in my opinion, should pass a continuing resolution, funds the entirety of the federal government, every bit of it, except Obamacare. And it should explicitly prohibit spending any money, discretionary or mandatory, on Obamacare. Now, we've seen the next page of this play. President Obama, the Senate Democrats will get up and scream and yell, the mean, nasty Republicans are threatening to shut down the government. And at that point, we got to do something we haven't done in a long, long time. Stand up and win the argument. We got to say, look, we have voted to fund the federal government. We don't want to shut the federal government down. President Obama has already granted waivers to every giant corporation in America to spare them the cost of Obamacare. Why is President Obama threatening to shut the government down to deny those same waivers to hardworking American families? President Obama grants waivers to members of Congress. Why is President Obama threatening to shut the federal government down to deny those waivers to hardworking American families? And if President Obama forces a partial temporary shutdown, you have an impasse. One side or the other has to blink. How do you win this fight? Don't blink. The grassroots awakening that we are seeing is powerful. You know, just a few weeks ago, the national website don'tfundit.com was launched. How do we get men and women in Washington to listen to the American people? We get millions upon millions of Americans rising up, holding them accountable. Between now and September 30th, if we see millions of Americans going to don'tfundit.com, signing the petition, picking up the phone, calling Republicans, calling Democrats, calling their elected officials, and saying, stand up and do the right thing. If the American people demand stop Obamacare, the greatest job killer in this country, eventually our elected officials will be forced to do what they should have been doing all along, which is listen to the people. Your passion is what's going to do it, because every one of us remembers what Ronald Reagan said, that freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. That we don't pass it on to our kids in the bloodstream And not a one of us in this room wants to see the day when we're talking to our children or our children's children and answering the question, what was it like to live in America when people were free? We are standing together to defend liberty, to defend the Constitution, and to restore that shining city on a hill that is the United States of America. Thank you, and God bless you.